Step 1 of today's lesson is to examine the concept of organization. Before beginning this section, hopefully you have read chapters 2, 3, and 8 of the text. So as we go along, you'll have the text available and you can follow the discussion. Chapter 2 discusses organizational structure, which is the basic managerial principles that any organization needs to have in order to function. Chapter 3 discusses organizational culture, the atmosphere or environment that exists anywhere there are groups of people gathered. And Chapter 8 discusses organizational change, the barriers to it, and tools to overcome those barriers. It is essential that the administrator know how to effect positive change in a school organization, especially in this time of education under siege. Item or topic that I wish to talk about is Chapter 2, Organizational Structure. You'll notice that at the beginning of the chapter, there are listed a number of items to be defined, and these items come, as you probably have noticed, directly from classical theory. And in fact, this is one good thing that classical theory did to support organizational structure. They laid out a useful pattern of bureaucratic concepts that are necessary for any organization to function. These terms, most of them, you will find on your final exam and on quiz questions. So you need to make sure that you understand each and every one of them. All of these concepts are critical to the structural functioning of an organization, and we do owe classical theory. Secondly, there are many models presented in this chapter. There are several that, in my opinion, however, are more crucial to explaining the world works than others. So what I will tend to do, in fact I'll do this throughout, is to tell you the models that I believe are the most pertinent, and that would be, of course, the original definition: do they explain the way the world works? And so the models below, in my opinion, do indeed explain the way the world works. The first one I want to talk about is Douglas McGregor's Theory X, Theory Y, something I hope that you will never forget as you progress through your career as an administrator. Douglas McGregor conducted research back, I think 50s or 60s. At least I remember learning it when I was going through. And it's critical, I think, to understanding the concept of management. He sampled a group of teachers, and he asked them how they perceived their administrators in a questionnaire. When he gathered the questionnaires and he put them together, he discovered that the teachers themselves had tended to lump their opinions of administrators into two discernible groups. He labeled these groups X and Y. He discovered that Theory X administrators, in the teachers' opinions that he sampled, believed that employees needed to be closely supervised, that employees really didn't like to work, could not be trusted, and needed to be told what to do. This attitude stems from classical administrative theory. What has always amazed me is how teachers, very good teachers who have been promoted up to administration, will sometimes almost, as it were, change personalities. And they go from being that good teacher, that team work teacher, to something akin to Attila the Hun. There are a lot of explanations for that, and some we will be talking about as we progress through the course, but it's never ceased to amaze me how sometimes people take on this mantle of leadership and believe that it means they have to be the boss, the one in charge, which, as we've pointed out earlier, is simply not the case in the real world. At any rate, that's the group that you don't want to be in. The other group, what he called Theory Y administrators, and again, this is according to teachers' opinions, not his, believe that employees like to work. Employees are competent. Employees are positive. Employees can be trusted. They're professionals. Needless to say, teachers preferred working for Theory Y folks, who tend to follow open systems administrative theory. So Theory Y tends to be a lot of what open systems administrative theory is, and that is what you do want to follow. Another model that I think is extremely useful in explaining the way the world works, and one that is on your quiz, and you'll need to learn how to draw it, because that's what the question is the Guba-Getzel's social system model. In this model, there are two types of needs, goals, and attitudes. First, there's what's called the nomothetic dimension. That is, the needs of the organization. The organization has goals, values, that need to be met in order to make the organization successful. The ideographic dimension, on the other hand, is the goals, values, needs of the individuals within the organization. If one focuses too much on the nomothetic, one tends toward theory X behavior. If, on the other hand, one focuses on the ideographic, one tends towards theory Y behavior. However, the key is balance. Focusing on only one dimension is not useful. Too much nomothetic, and you have a dictatorship. And I refer you back to the discussion in the previous item. You're back to theory X. Too much ideographic, and you have chaos. This two-part concept, by the way, between organizational and people needs, will be repeated throughout the book. In many, many models in the various concepts we'll explore, you will see this two-factor aspect of an organization emerge time and time again. If one were looking at what is happening today, one would say that we have swung very strongly to the nomothetic side, which again never ceases to amaze me, since we have spent decades trying to get away from the idea that administration is a top-down dictatorial process. And yet, here we are, again, looking at this very same concept. The difference is, this time, it's not coming so much from inside of education, but from outside. And thirdly, there is W. Edwards Deming. He was a business philosopher who was active at the end of World War II. Very well-known individual here in the United States. Well-known philosophically, but not a lot of corporations in this country at that time bought into Deming's principles, unfortunately. But Douglas MacArthur, who was given command of a destroyed Japan at the end of the war and told to help build the economy back, hired Deming to do the job. Deming was widely known for his, as I mentioned, for his business theories here, but again, being the rugged individuals we Americans tend to be, his working together as a team philosophy didn't do too well. But in Japan, his theories literally began the huge transition that eventually led Japan to be world producers of quality goods. The interesting thing is that many of his theories, while geared to business, are equally suitable for educators. I can remember as a teenager, back in the late 50s, early 60s, buying Japanese products, and the one thing you knew about Japanese products then were that they were going to fall apart shortly and you need a new one. But at least they were there, they were interesting, they were popular, and they sold. And it didn't take long before the quality continued to the point where we stopped thinking of Japanese products as junk and started thinking of Japanese products as quality. And as you well know today, many, many Japanese products are top quality. It all began with an American back at the end of World War II, W. Edwards Deming. So at this time, we will pause for discussion. In the chapter, you will find all 14 of Deming's basic business principles. You are to focus on numbers 8 through 14. You are to discuss how each of these 7 principles would apply to education. You'll work with the same group as last time, and will follow the same procedure. When the